independently of European anarchism. Both ideologies shared a profound contempt for government. Unlike the European anarchists, the individualists believed that people had the right to own private property, as long as it had been obtained by their own labor. Benjamin Tucker, editor of the prominent anarchist newspaper Liberty, denounced the capitalist monopoly of money, land, and tariff, and advocated peaceful change, not armed revolution.
Guided by these individualist principles, Josiah Warren founded two cooperative communities, Utopia in 1844 and Modern Times in 1851. Many of the 19th century individualists were also advocates of free love. Ezra and Angela Haywood of Massachusetts were outspoken critics of marriage and the subjugation of women. They were harassed and arrested numerous times for publishing and distributing writings on birth control and sexual freedom.
Individualism was also at the root of a number of homesteading experiments. One of its key theorists was Ralph Bersotti, who believed the only viable social organization was a society of homesteaders who were self-sustaining and who could live without interference from government. Mildred Loomis, one of Bersotti's associates, became a homesteader in the 1940s.
Having grown up on a Nebraska farm, I didn't know anybody was poor or anybody was in need. I was a very naive person when I hit New York City in my graduate work, though I began to be very puzzled by what was called the Great Depression. Remember that? No?
I've heard of it.
You, fortunately, didn't struggle with that. But then's when I really began to question and to be aware of what I call the government system. Maybe you can understand that when I was young, I had a great dream there on the Nebraska farm that if I were to have what I really wanted, I would be a secretary to a congressman in Washington, D.C. But by the time I met Ralph Bersotti working there in Dayton, I had question after question to think through.
All of this centers around homesteading.
Yes.
What principles are there in homesteading that are important?
Well, I would say, in one word, it's responsibility. I think a person who is responsible, and by ethics and by the whole natural setting, must be responsible for his own survival. And wherever that is violated by government or business or education or cities or anything at all, where responsibility is taken from human beings, we think it's a mistake.
Do you see any similarities between what you're trying to do in anarchism or the principles
Well,
of anarchism?
if you mean Gilbert Tucker, Benjamin Tucker's anarchism, yes, by all means, because I, years ago, was thrilled by his way to get rid of the monopoly and the exploitation and get it into voluntary association. Sure, I'm all for that. I'm not afraid of the term anarchism, if that's what you mean.
That is what we mean.
But you know, if it's one of these bomb-throwing collectivists against everything, then we question the use of that term. But for good, straight, voluntary, do-it-yourself, we can handle, we can cope, yes.
Great.
there's an instinctual anarchism in the American people, and it goes back to the Jeffersonian tradition. There's a real yearning for self-reliance amongst Vermonters, new and old. I mean, that's what they're up here for, living in these hills. So they appreciate. They're doing it. They may not call it anarchism, but they're doing a lot of the things we talk about.
Like what kind of things?
Well, the first was being self-reliant, creating alternatives that meet your needs rather than accepting what the society as it is when you're born into it. In this little town, it's not a very big town, the people have organized a community center that shows films for adults and for children, that has potluck suppers, theatrical performances, meetings there. I see the latent anarchy, the beginnings of anarchy in New England town meetings, in volunteer fire departments, in food cooperatives, that people are responding to a desire to control their own lives, not be told what to do and how to think, and to be managed and bossed around, but to find ways in which they can care for their needs, their material and emotional needs, within small groups on a small scale, where there can be direct democracy, and so where people do have a sense of really participating and really controlling their own destinies.
Oh, well, what makes this place different from the other factories you've worked in?
It makes it different because each worker has an opportunity to say whatever she or he likes to in any of the business part. And our holiday pay, our vacation, or whatever. If we make a loan, that the workers, each individual, each operator has a say. We have to contact everybody. Workers' own is different from all other plants I've ever worked, because usually the head people, the manager and personnel committee takes care of everything. Right here, the workers take care of everything.
That make a difference?
That makes a difference. You build your own business, and then you work it like you want to. You know, and you become a part of it, and it's your business. You're not working for the other man, you're working for yourself.
Is there a different sense of community among the workers here than...
Well, I think the communication is great, because there isn't another one in this area, and everybody, well, you know, we're just starting, so they're beginning to get the feel of it. You know, I think if in another year's time we'll be, everybody will be want to have a part at Workers' Own.
So you sound strongly committed to the idea?
Yes, I am strongly committed to it, because I feel as though it's like working for myself. You know, what I put into it is what I get out of it.
Decentralism and self-management are at the heart of the anarchist philosophy. Anarchists pose the question, why should the decisions which affect our lives be made in a remote, centralized seat of government? It doesn't make sense. People should administer their own lives, not relegate responsibility to somebody else.
The town meeting, the block association, the factory committee, these are all examples of anarchist types of organizations.
One of the things that struck me most when I went to Europe and lived there for a couple of years, was how law-abiding the people were, and how I broke all the laws. And I think I didn't break the laws so much because I was an anarchist, and it was just because I was an American. I mean, if I came to a traffic light, nobody was there, I went through the goddamn thing. It was just an attitude, what's the point of staying here, or if I could get, if I get out on the left-hand side, and I found that my European neighbors went crazy. Stay in line, it was sort of the constant, like, stay in line, be this way, queue up in England, and I'd say,